Video log 105, January 10th, 2018. Today we'll be exploring the potential location of my specimen, which I have tentatively named Choresmatia, Greek for without eyes. Now, why of course I name it such things, unless you haven't already figured it out, which you should have, if it means without eyes. Anyway, I'll go into more detail about that on a later date in another log. Now, today specifically, I would like to go over what region you might find such a specimen. Now, this of course is how we picture the Nome Ocean. Obviously starting with the intertidal, the neritic, then out here, all out here in this space would be considered open ocean, while also considering regions like this to be the benthic. You, of course, would start with the euphotic region. You'd have lots of light. Now, after you pass the euphotic, you would find the dysphotic, or twilight. You would notice that there's starting to be less and less light. And you would be right, because there's less light. Then you get to the aphotic, and then, yeah, there's just no light. So, of course, our creature is found here, the aphotic. Now, the benthic aphotic is incredibly dark. Very little plant life, or if any at all, can really survive. There is no light, to amount to anything. And the pressure is so immense that there's not really a possibility for a whole lot of complex organisms to really thrive or to form any sort of rigid skeleton. So today, I have a few items to help show such distinction of pressure. Well, I would like to compare, say, a rigid specimen, very complex, to the stereotypically, relatively at least, strong structure of an egg. And then I would also like to compare a rather non-rigid, yet also complex structure that's very flexible almost. And there's very little give. There's a lot of give. Very little structure though. I would like to just demonstrate the force of about 4,000 meters of water on these type of organisms. Now, first, of course, I'll start with this pillow. As I said before, it represents non-complex, complex, but non-rigid organisms, but they have give. And you'll notice this give, as I drop this 25-pound weight, it's fine. Literally nothing has changed this pillow. It is perfectly safe. However, let us use our standard rigid complex organism. And you'll notice, not so good. God, that's bad. Now, we'll clean up that in a minute, but first let us go back to this graph. Now, keep in mind this is roughly 4,000 meters of water. This pressure, obviously, is immense enough to harm creatures of such complexity. However, let us go back to that pillow example. You notice it is flexible and rigid, just like our creature. Now, I can't really go into too much detail on that, for that deserves its own explanation. But you'll notice with such lack of light that, as previously mentioned, plants cannot really thrive at all. So of course, our organism can only be one of two things. Either bacteria, or some type of microorganism, or some type of specially adapted complex organism. Now, I'll say it right now, it is not a microorganism of any sort. It is not a bacteria. Yet it is unique in that it is something we've never seen exactly done before. Now, of course, I think that's enough time for one episode and one demonstration that I will refer back to later. And I would like to thank you for watching this first doc, and I will continue my research and come back to another explanation in session 1.